What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. 450 SMC testing continued. Today we are on number 4. This is a very special test. I would consider this a special edition pretty much. We are going old school. We're going back to the original 450 SMC cartridges. We have right here in front of us QUIK-SHOK and Hi-Vel. These are at least 20 years old in my opinion. This company, TRITON, they went out of business in 2003, so I can't see these being any younger than 20 years old. Today we will be looking at QUIK-SHOK, that will be test number 4, and then tomorrow we will be doing test number 5 with Hi-Vel. As far as this one you see right here, this is the TRITON QUIK-SHOK 450 SMC 230 grain. I'm assuming that this QS stands for QUIK-SHOK hollow point, number blah blah blah, that's traveling at 1150 feet per second advertised with what they calculate to be 675 foot-pounds of energy out of a 5-inch barrel. I believe the way that these are made, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a few separate pieces of lead that got squished together to make this, and then when it hits something, like the gel, it's gonna open up into separate petals. That's where they get the QUIK-SHOK. I don't think it's supposed to be a super deep penetrator, but we're gonna find out. It's a real shame that 450 SMC, 40 Super, 45 Super, things like that didn't continue. There's a whole backstory between the 45 Super and the 450 SMC, but that's for a different video. They actually used to make firearms chambered in 450 SMC, believe it or not. I know a lot of people have never heard of it, but it does still exist. The one company that I know that is still making current production 450 SMC, and we've definitely tested it on the channel and will continue to test more, is Double Tap. So good job on them for keeping this cartridge alive. What it basically is, for anybody that doesn't know, is it's pretty hyped up 45 ACP. You have 45 ACP, then you can go to 45 plus P, then it went to 45 Super or 450 SMC. They're strengthened cases, they can go at a little bit higher pressures, and boy can they get some projectiles moving. There's a lot of case capacity in the 45 ACP that is never used. With these type of cartridges, they start using it. The firearm we're going to be using today is the Remington R1, chambered in 45 Super. Now I say chambered in 45 Super because it is sprung heavily enough to handle 45 Super. There's a few different things that have to be done to the 45 Super guns to make them reliably cycle it and be able to take the punishment of the kind of brutal cartridge sometimes. Now there's conversions that you can do to Glocks and to 1911s, or you can buy certain HKs and maybe other firearms that are just straight up able to handle the 45 Super or 450 SMC right out of the gate. So that's not the whole story, but that's good enough for now. We're going to be using this 5-inch 1911 to put 5 rounds through the chronograph and into this B8 target. We're going to try to get an average velocity, an average foot-pounds, and we're going to check, of course, accuracy. Now, I'm not going to use a bench rest or a table or anything like that. We do our accuracy testing offhand because we're trying to test practical accuracy in a defensive shooting situation. In the real world, whether it's animal attack or something else, you're not going to have the luxury of a bench, so we don't even bother with that. After we do that, we're going to move the chronograph to in front of the gel. That way we capture the velocity of the bullet that is going into the gel. We have lined up here two 10% clear ballistics gel blocks, 20 inches apiece for a total of 40 inches. This one's basically going to be a catcher block. It's already been damaged. I don't think we're going to get out of the first block, but we always have a backup. Testing explained, let's get to shooting. All right, 5 rounds of QUIK-SHOK, loaded up, 5-inch 1911. We are 20 feet off that target, about 15 feet off the chronograph. First one chambered just fine, and we are cracking into a box of history right now. Right above the X, and we had 1151. We had a hole in hole, and that was 1158. Got a little bit under that one, and 1161. Somewhere right in the same group at 1158. And we had a little bit of a jam here. So this is a Wilson Combat magazine, and that one is stuck pretty much straight up. I don't know if we can blame that on the magazine or the ammo. We usually don't have jam ups with this firearm. Let's open this up. That was jammed in there pretty hard, and that was a pretty nasty jam. That kind of hurt that cartridge. So that put a big old dent in the side of it, as you can see. I can't remember having that big of a dent from a normal jam in this firearm. The follower in that magazine seems to be going up just fine. I don't really know what happened with that one. I'm going to go ahead and put that one in my pocket and shoot a different one. So that one is clean. And it chambered. All right. And we stacked that right in the group with the rest of them at 11:55. Let's go take a look. Holy moly, that is a nice group. That is awesome. So they're all 5 right in there somewhere. That's rare that I actually get them all inside the X-ring. They're not even like outside touching. They're all in the X-ring. Very good. It's hot ammo in the hand, but of course, if you just take your time and aim with it, it's controllable to at least shoot in single shots. I can compare it to a very spicy 10mm. That's what it feels like. Shootable, just spicier, but obviously pretty darn accurate. Let me know in the comments what you think about that malfunction that we had. I haven't really seen that out of that gun. Not like that. All right, let's try to quick shock this gel. I want to see what this is all about. So delivering a good amount of foot-pounds sometimes picks that block up and moves it a little bit. Let's see if it does a little bit of a jiggle, or let's see if it's just, you know, your average 45. It gave it a little bit of a jiggle, and I see the pattern from those pedals breaking apart. We had 1163 right there, so no joke right there with foot-pounds. All right, 1163. And coming over here to the front of the block, we can see where it did its thing in the beginning. It immediately lost its copper jacket. You can see it's laying right there within, well, let's measure it. It's the first 3.5, maybe 4 inches. So between 3 and 4 inches is where its entire copper jacket is laying. You can see the cup of it right there. I think if I can focus in on it just a little bit. But anyway, it's going into 3 separate petals like a claw. It actually looks really cool. On slow motion, you saw it separate into those 3 petals. I thought that was really neat, except for it only goes to about 10.5 inches. You do have energy dump in there. We saw it jiggle the block. It does have some pretty gnarly looking wound channel there, as far as, if you look at it, it's not just a tiny piercing wound channel. That would be a bleeder right there. And then this initial pretty much grenading effect, I would say that's a controlled grenading effect. It's not like the Liberty Civil Defense type of rounds where they just shatter themselves completely. It did a controlled losing of the jacket and then the petals that went forward. It's designed to do this. Like I said in the beginning of the video, it's 3 petals that they compress together that are made to just release themselves. I think it looks pretty cool. I personally, and I usually don't speak on this part of the gel test, but I'd like to see more penetration, especially out of that much power in your hand. But let's take a look from the top. All right, looking from the top, you see basically the same thing there. You have the explosion and then the release of these 3 petals. It is pretty gnarly. Now, we're looking at ballistics gel, so this doesn't really translate to what would happen in any kind of real fleshy tissue or anything like that. People say this and that about what gel represents. I'm not sure what it actually means. Some people say that if it goes 10 inches in gel, that means it only goes 5 inches in flesh. I'm not sure about all that. So we're just gonna have to take the gel as a test for now. We don't have any actual like big chunks of meat to shoot. So as we cut this block open, I just want to show you guys how this thing is laying in there. So there is the copper jacket, and it's just laying in there like a Chinese star, basically. There's a really big wound cavity here. Let me get this cut open a little bit for you. You can see as we open up the gel block, I can peel apart this permanent wound cavity. There's a few little pieces of lead fragment in there, but for the most part, where you see that star effect, yes, it stays a permanent wound channel. That's pretty gnarly. Moving on here to try to get one of these petals out. And by the way, the Tasty brand knife from Wally World works pretty good on gel. A lot of knives don't work on gel, but this one works pretty good. So getting that one dug out, there's one of those petals. You can see how it just peeled itself back. That's probably how it gave it that way to go ahead and sail through the gel, because it's basically like a weird wing. But you can see it's a little bit sharp on some of its edges, and it should have 2 other brothers in there that look just like it. There's the other one. And we'll flip it around and get the 3rd one out. Boom, there we go. There's all 3 of them. They originally started nice and tight together. You can kind of see how they have their corners where they had fit together. I don't have 3 hands, so I can't really hold it. I can try. So at one point in time, they were all together. They got pressed in as they were pushed into their copper cup. I can barely hold this, sorry guys. But then, as they hit their target, they mushroomed open and they all came apart like that. So that's what's left. We'll have that weighed and up in the corner. There's not a real way I can measure these projectiles out very well, but I can measure this part a little bit. This was part of the entrance. I don't know if it's worth measuring or not, but I'll do it. Overall, there was not a whole lot of loss of lead in general, so that's good. They remained 3 separate projectiles. The copper got out of the way and they didn't shatter themselves. So they got to the 10-inch mark. I'm gonna go ahead and measure this out real quick. The farthest or the biggest width I can see, I think the petals maybe got to about 4 inches apart. Once they got, you know, 10 inches deep, they were 4 inches apart. So whatever conical effect you can imagine there, 10 inches is good. And the energy dump here is good. However, I would like to see this projectile path go at least to 16 inches. 16 inches. I'm not one of those people who worry about over penetration or anything like that, but you know, anything other than a perfect ideal frontal shot on something, this might not perform too great. But the whole idea behind it, I think, is great. And with that being said, with technology today, people talk about the technology of handgun bullets, and sometimes it's BS, but sometimes it's for real. So when this was made 20 years ago, or even older than that possibly, when it was designed, this is what they had to work with. They had cup and core bullets. That was lead bullets pressed into copper cups. Now what they can do is they just put solid pieces of copper on a lathe, they spin them out to whatever they want, or they put them in a CNC, and they can cut all kinds of grooves and flutes and this and that. Lehigh Defense is one of them, and CEB bullets, there's a few other ones. They make all these solid copper options with these cuts in them that do kind of the same thing. They'll leave a solid core in the middle to keep pushing through. CEB Maximus is one of them that we tried in the 400 Legend. You should check that test out. That's one of those where the petals will just break off and basically do what this did. They have the same thing. They have these petals. They look just like the copper petals would in those tests, except for they have a core that keeps going. That's where the technology has gotten better. It was still fun checking this out. We got the Hi-Vel to check out next, and we have plenty of this ammunition here, and we will have plenty of Hi-Vel that we can do other tests. Let me know what you guys want to do, whether it be clothing or vehicle door, things like that. When it comes to special ammunitions like this, I will try other weird things. I don't like just shooting denim and car doors for no reason with things that we know how they're going to perform. But older cool stuff, yeah. There's not even any other tests on YouTube really that I know of this 450 SMC QUIK-SHOK or Hi-Vel. There might be a couple very small blips, but I don't think anybody's done an actual video on it. So let me know what you guys think about this ammunition. Let me know what you think about 450 SMC in general, and I hope you enjoyed this video, this little throwback 20-year-old ammunition video. It's not like you can even go buy this stuff right now, so that does kind of stink. I just wanted to show you something from the past. Something from the past that's actually one of the most accurate ammos we've tested so far. At least out of that gun today in my hands. Next test is going to be the Hi-Vel 450 SMC from TRITON. Another throwback, the 230 grain jacketed hollow point going at 1150 feet per second, again at 675 foot-pounds. Hope to see you there, and until then, stay safe, have fun, and keep shooting.